What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Let me say, first of all, before I get into this video, big shout out to the brother, Mr. Mass, for the $10 donation via the Cash App. Much respect to you for showing love to Too Raw for TV. Okay, so let's talk about John Stockton. Now, John Stockton's been in the news a little bit as of late. Chris Paul recently surpassed Jason Kidd for number 2 all time in career assists. I believe he has over 12,000 career assists, but the odds of him catching John Stockton are probably a billion to 1. I think Stockton's at 15,806, which puts Chris Paul about 30, I guess around 3,100. What would that be? 3,700 assists behind or so. I don't think he's going to catch him. It is just way too far out there. And then you got people out there talking about John Stockton padded his numbers. Look, man, you guys have some nerve. You're talking about a guy who's arguably the greatest pass first point guard of all time. I think statistically he is. If anything, Stockton was too unselfish. He played the game the right way. He didn't go out there with a predetermined goal of trying to get this stat or that stat. He didn't care about any of that stuff. When he broke Maurice Cheek's steals record, he didn't want the game to stop. He was embarrassed by it. He's not like how your guy is, who, always about numbers, always about accolades, individual accolades. It's not like that. It wasn't like that. It's bull, poppycock. To put that out there. Now let's talk about John Stockton. In one of his less than stellar moments, okay? And that is, as much as it pains me to say this, it's true. John Stockton deserves a lot more smoke for Utah, at the very least, losing Game 6 at home versus Chicago in 1998 in the NBA Finals, in that Game 6. That's not to take away Michael Jordan's phenomenal greatness, him hitting the biggest shot in NBA Finals history. I know people say Kyrie Irving. I mean, Michael Jordan's shot was just iconic, man. And not to take away any of that. But John Stockton does deserve more smoke. He does. First of all, what I'm exactly referring to is the sequence when John Stockton, who was being guarded by Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr historically got cooked by John Stockton. Cooked. I don't even know the numbers on top of my head, but this is just from watching them play. He couldn't guard John Stockton. Even this version of John Stockton, who was 36 years old, not getting that at the moment. He was being guarded by Steve Kerr, who was not having a good series. And Stockton had the opportunity, even though I know he was a pass first guy, he had an opportunity to go for a score against Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr himself was 30 years old at the time. I think he was 30. Actually, no, he was older than that. I think Steve Kerr was like 32. So even Steve Kerr was no longer in his prime. Stockton was playing the right way. He was going to the guy who was leading the charge for the for the Utah Jazz. And that was Karl Malone. Karl Malone was by far their best player in that series. I think Karl Malone took something around 120 shots in that NBA series. Okay. He was their guy. You can even argue, you can make an argument, especially from an efficiency standpoint, that Karl Malone was having a better series than Michael Jordan. Okay. He was their main guy. Stockton made the right basketball decision to go to their main cog, which was Karl Malone. You could argue that. But when you're being guarded, as Karl Malone was, by Dennis Rodman, and you got Michael Jordan, who is ostensibly guarding Jeff Hornacek, right? But Michael Jordan, being the basketball savant that he is, knew that you were going to force a pass to Karl Malone because he knew Stockton wasn't the type of guy to take matters into his own hands and try to score. You know, Steve Nash often, although Steve Nash was a little bit more offensively inclined to score than John Stockton, oftentimes Steve Nash had the same issue. Steve Nash would be more of a pass-first guy. He rarely took a lot of shots. I think Steve Nash only had one 40-point game, if I remember certain correctly. Stockton's career high is 34. Stockton was a guy who wasn't inclined to shoot. He forced the pass into Karl Malone. Right as Michael Jordan didn't clear. He never clears down low, meaning he didn't go over to guard Stockton. He was spying Karl Malone. He came from the weak side and stole the ball from Karl Malone. Stockton made a mistake because he thought Michael had cleared. It was that split second that Michael Jordan made. He fooled Stockton to thinking that he was going to clear and go to his man on the weak side of the court. He never did that. He stayed. And Karl Malone, unsuspecting, didn't know that Michael Jordan was there. He stole the ball. That gave Chicago an extra possession, which ultimately led to Michael Jordan's score over Byron Russell. Or is it Brian Russell? It's Byron Russell, right. Led to the score over Byron Russell. Stockton only took 49 shots in that series. 49 shots. But he made 24 of them. So he was efficient. Matter of fact, let's see, I got the numbers. John Stockton only took 49 shots in that series. That's about, what is that? How many shot attempts is that per game? I'm thinking that's about 8 shot attempts per game. And in the game one, I think he went like 9 of 12, which means that after game one, he was probably taking like 6 shots a game. Even by Stockton standards, that's way too low. For the series, he averaged 9.7 points, 8.7 rebounds, 2 steals. Now, I get that John Stockton was 36 years old. I understand that he missed 18 games that year. I forget exactly what it was. I think it was some injury he suffered that caused him to miss 18 games. I just can't remember exactly what it was. It was the first time he'd ever really missed any serious time in his career. I think in the prior, what would that be, 13 years of his, 13 years, excuse me. In the prior 13 years of his career, he'd only missed 4 games. He was a guy like Karl Malone who felt it was his duty to go out there and play. And it wasn't like John Stockton didn't sometimes play hurt, but this foolishness where you got guys missing games because of foot soreness, sore finger. Man, these guys didn't miss games behind crap like that, you know? But look, this was also the first year that Stockton was not in double digits in assists. It was only the second full season where he didn't lead the league in assists, starting from when he was teaming up with Karl Malone. And it was the first year, I believe, that he wasn't an all-star in 10 years. In over a decade, I believe. So, you know, this wasn't the same guy. But Stockton clearly made a mistake. Clearly made a mistake in making that pass down low to Karl Malone. And I don't think he gets enough flack for that. I'm not saying he should be beaten over the head about it relentlessly every day of the year, like they did my boy Russ that year. I'm not saying that, but I just never really heard any commentators bring that up. They never bring that up. And, you know, at the end of the day, you got to get the ball out of Mike. You can't have Michael Jordan get opportunities to score on you because he'll kill you, you know? So, yeah, at the very least, John Stockton cost them that game. At the very least, he cost them a Game 7, which when you look at the evidence, when you look at Michael Jordan and what some of the other Bulls players and personnel were saying, the Bulls were done physically. Scottie Pippen possibly would not, well, probably, I say, would not have played in Game 7. His back was so bad. If there was a Game 7, I don't really foresee how Chicago wins. Michael Jordan was on fumes. Unless Tony Kukoc pulls some out of his ass and have like a 30, 35-point game, back when that would have been like the equivalent of a 45-point game, come off the bench or something. I just don't see the offensive firepower, even in that era, allowing for Chicago to pull. I mean, because like I said, they were bone tired. Remember, even though these are the two oldest teams in the NBA, along with the Houston Rockets, Chicago didn't really get any rest. Chicago had just went through a grueling 7-game series against the Pacers, who really, on paper, were better than Chicago, whereas Utah had swept the Kobe and Shaq Lakers. This was the Dale Harris era in 4. They had like a lot of rest, and that gave Chicago a disadvantage and Utah an advantage. But yeah, and not to mention that Stockton, who the year before had knocked down a straightaway 3 to beat the Houston Rockets in the conference finals, missed a similar shot, which I think it spun out, or no, I think it hit the rim, and then I think Brian Russell tried to heave up a 25-foot three-pointer that had no chance of going in, and the Bulls began celebrating. But that sequence, I think, was a big, major mistake by John Stockton. I think Stockton, basically, I think he was telegraphing to what he was going to do, and Mike saw that. And like I said, I know Stockton is not in his DNA, wasn't in his DNA to score. Like I say, he wanted to play the game the right way. But in that scenario, I think that pass was just too predictable. It was too predictable. You know what I mean? I think that was a mistake. I agree with this sentiment that was a mistake on John Stockton's part. But anyway, it's pretty much all I wanted to say in this particular video. That was one of the great series in NBA history. And John Stockton's a great player. I don't like this slander about him padding his assist totals. It's stupid. Especially when you got guys in the NBA now clearly stat padding, but when you call it out, you're called a hater. But now they're trying to, you know what I'm saying, besmirch everything that these guys did, calling it stat padding. And just, I tell you, I just can't stand the media. Can't stand them. Maybe that's all I got to say, but I'll tell you guys.